Welcome in, everybody. It's time for a little live stream action. First day of practice. We're here today. Rod Babers, Jerry Hamilton, join me, Bobby Burton. This episode brought to you by our friends at myperfectfranchise.net, Andy Ludicky and those guys getting people set up with their own businesses. Hey, I got to talk to you guys today a little bit before we get going. We came out immediately after the media availability, and we had like a 30-minute video where we talked about the practice, et cetera, gave our thoughts, but we didn't get any chance during that time frame to get questions and take questions from the audience. So tonight, I thought what we would do, guys, is just let you guys ask questions. If we can go on soliloquies if y'all want us to and talk about different positions. We can talk anything and everything that happened today, but all three of us were there, and we're ready to talk it. So let's get going here while we've got you. And I'll just start right off. One of the very first ones I want to talk about is this. El Conquistador. How does Sadir Mitchell look? Has he begun to reshape his body? I'm going to start, and I'll just be nice and say no. No, not yet. Not yet.
Now, and Sark was asked about him and Jure Bledsoe specifically in the post-practice press conference. And one thing he said is, he was like, I want to see those guys when full pads are on. He said, so anybody asking me questions about those guys, I'm not really to get into it. We didn't see enough from those guys. He specifically with Sadir Mitchell, he mentioned that he is going to have to play the run well. That's what he does. He said so because somebody asked him a specific question about Sadir. He said, I won't be able to answer a question on Sadir until the full pads come on. To that guy, to the question though, no, he still looks 365, 375 to me.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, and that's not a huge problem if he carries it well and he plays faster than that weight and plays with it. But I mean, Devondre Sweat reportedly he's the biggest D tackle in the league right now. He played really well at upwards of 360 pounds, whatever Devondre Sweat was, right? He was really nimble and agile. I don't think you get the same translation in terms of the way he moves around that mass with Sadir Mitchell. So I think that's why they want to get him lighter. The fact that he hasn't gotten lighter is concerning. But just from the eye test that he hasn't gotten lighter is concerning because I wonder ultimately like if that's something that he's just struggling with and they can't get him lighter. And the fact that they want him to be a bulldog against the run, that just shows you that, he's one of those guys that they want to be kind of early on, he can be that Rock of Gibraltar in the middle. They want him to be a run stuffer mainly. So it just shows you that ultimately he's still not considered an every down player. They're trying to bring him along slowly and say, hey, man, with that big body, can you just stuff a gap?
They're trying to get something out of him.
Yeah, can you just stuff it? Can you just not be moved? Yeah. Can you be there? Can you actually, if we can put you there in the A gap, can you take on two blockers and stand your ground? If you can do that, that's going to be a win for us. If we can count on you to be able to do that, I think that's what they want ultimately.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks, Rod, and thanks, Jerry Hamilton. Let's go, El Conquistador. We're going to stay with you because it's a good question here. Is Jonte Cook going to start? Man, that is a mouthful. And I'll tell you, let's just talk about the receivers. Cook, DeAndre Moore, and Isaiah Bond were the receivers with the first unit. That's how spring practice ended. Okay. Ryan Wego looked good. Silas Bolden is a newcomer. He adds something different to the equation, I think is fair to say. But I'll leave it up to you guys. Does Jonte Cook start right now, in y'all's opinion?
I think, yes, he does start. I mean, we're one day in the practice, right? I think, yes, he does start. I think he's going to make a big jump this year. I don't think there's any doubt about it. There's Silas Bolden. Look at him run through the catch, man, by the way. He's going to have a good year. Look, I don't think numbers-wise some of these guys may put up the numbers that Texas fans want them to put up because there's one ball to be spread around to a lot more targets this year, whether that's running backs out of the backfield to Jaden Blue as a pass catcher, whether that's a tight end position with an older Gunnar Helm and Nye Black. You even saw Juan Davis, Jordan Washington. Look, there's Juan Davis right there. He's actually put a Rodley's armor But there's going to be Sark's going to play 6 wide receivers. I think Jonte Cook is a starter right now. I think the other thing here too is Texas needs Jonte Cook to play really well. He was a highly ranked player out of high school out of DeSoto. He was very influential and helped Texas in recruiting because he's got such a great personality. So there's a lot of things that go into this. Yes, I think Jonte will have a good year. Yes, I think he has the inside track to start. And 2, Sark and those guys need him to play well. They need him to have a good season at Texas in year 2 because year 1 was a learning one.
Yeah.
Rod, is Jonte Cook going to start, in your opinion?
Right now, I say yes. Are we talking about game 1? Are we talking about, right now? I say yes. And with game 1, I do wonder by the time we get to game 6, game 8, if that's the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that Jonte won't be a consistently good player for you. I just wonder if other guys separate and you start to see some guys take on different roles, third down guy, red zone guys that can step up and be your deep threat. I just think guys are going to end up kind of falling into different roles. And I think that's what Sark wants ultimately. I think he wants guys to kind of fall into different roles, like we saw with Jay Witt last year, and A.D. Mitchell was your man beer last year. Xavier Worthy was kind of your go-to, can do everything. I think he still wants those types of roles available to the receivers, and I'm interested to see what guys are going to fill those particular roles on the team. It's going to happen, and I think that ultimately could determine how much a guy plays and if he starts or not. But I don't know if it's going to matter as much as target share. Because, you can start, but I don't know if necessarily that matters as much as the target share. Once the game gets going, once you're in a groove, who gets hot and who's getting favorable matchups, that kind of stuff. Because some teams may try to take you out of the game actually, I wonder if Texas is going to have a go-to guy. Defenses will game plan to take you away. Other guys step up. So A.D. Mitchell had such a big year, right? It's like, all right, we're going to take X-Man away. What's the other alternative? Well, it's going to be A.D. Mitchell in man-to-man coverage. He can beat man-to-man consistently, and he becomes, one of Quinn's favorite targets in different situations. So that's what I'm looking forward to is more the roles the guys are going to play. But I think Jonte Cook's a starter right now. I do.
Here's my take on it. Ryan Wingo did nothing to dispel the notion that he's a bad mojo long term. He did absolutely nothing to dispel. I mean, he ran by Kobe Black again. He made a catch below his knees, away from his body. Looked sharp in drills, fast, quick, big. He's going to be a whale after the catch, guys. I mean, he's so big. Here's one thing I would say. I'm not so sure that based on what I saw today, the second group of Ryan Wingo, Silas Bolden, and Matthew Golden work better than the first group of Moore, Cook, and Bond. I'm just putting that out there.
More dynamic.
I think that all 3 of those jobs are up for debate. Not just one, not just Jonte Cook.
I'll tell you this.
I actually think Jonte Cook of the three guys that are currently starting is the best of those starters right now. I think he's better than Isaiah Bond. That's just my opinion based on what I saw.
I think whoever's competing with Matthew Golden better bring it every day. That's why I think Matthew Golden is a really, really good football player. He had a little bit of a foot injury in the spring. He is going to be a really consistent player. Rod, consistent guys are hard to beat out, right? Because every time the coach looks up, they're doing the right thing. So I think whoever's competing with Matthew Golden better bring it every day.
And we saw how, and we've talked about this, Sark is so hands-on with the wide receivers. He is. After every route, he is critiquing guys. He's talking about the depth, get at this right depth. He wants to see guys flatten out the route here. He's very hands-on with that group. So ultimately, you're right, earning Sark's trust with consistency, with a baseline, that I think is going to end up, gaining you a lot of favor with Sark. And I'm with you. I agree with you, Bobby, that second group, Silas Bolden, that second group. This dude, it's strange to see somebody that small have a wide catch radius. It's weird, but he does. You saw it on that highlight play where he goes deep and the ball's it's thrown to the outside shoulder, and he just makes the nice adjustment. But he does, and he has a kind of an uncanny contested catch ability for a small guy. We saw one of those in one-on-ones where, it was a contested catch. He was able to come down with it. I would say for me, I don't see a guy like that, a small guy. It's really hard for me to see him separating in this group. But when you watch him, he does pass the eye test. He may not pass the test when you're looking at the measurables and you're like, man, that's small. Do I really think a guy like that is going to be able to play in the SEC and with this group of wide receivers? But when you watch him, he passes the eye test, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you.
Rod, talk about Sark's motion in his offense and how he can use Bolden and maximize it. Because to me, when that guy's on the move, he's hell on wheels.
That's scary. Yeah, that's scary because Sark, and I think Sark's going to increase his pre-snap usage, pre-snap motion usage. He's right now between like 50 and 55% with pre-snap motion shifts. I think he's going to increase that to 60, maybe even close to 70%. I mean, that's where the top teams in the NFL are. That's where, the Miami Dolphins at 80+%. Shanahan's at 75%. Green Bay Packers are at 70. Sean McVay's at 70%. Kansas City's at 64%. I think he's going to increase it. And I'm with you. I think with guys like Silas Bowden and even at Oregon State, they lined him up in a lot of different places on the offense. They put him in the backfield at times and shift him out to the slot, put him in a flex, different things of that nature. So if they did at Oregon State, I think Sark will. And I think he'd also in that, and I almost say Keelan Robinson role at times, and not saying he's Keelan Robinson, but he'll have boutique plays potentially to scheme him open specifically by, moving him around the formation. And that's a guy, like you said, if you give him the cheat motion, and that is some people call it the cheat motion or the cheetah motion, because we saw Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, and Miami use it first, and Sark used it too, where they basically get going parallel to line of scrimmage, and they're motioning, and they motion at the snap to give them a running start, and then they get into their route, trying to take it from the Canadian Football League, except you can't run toward the line of scrimmage, and trust me, I've had to defend that. It's hell on wheels. But a guy like Silas Bowden, who has that kind of change of direction, and we talked about how when that guy puts his foot in the ground, there's a certain explosivity and burst when he gets out of his breaks. You put that guy in motion, I mean, I guarantee you most defensive backs are going to be at a severe disadvantage leverage-wise, just because he's just as quick as he is fast. And that's why you want him in motion, because you'll make DBs have to back up off him. They won't want to put their hands on him either. If he's in motion, they don't want to be aggressive because you don't want to take a chance of getting picked or rubbed. And that's how you keep those smaller guys from having to deal with bump and run coverage and getting rerouted.
All right, going to go to the next question before we say thank you to our sponsor, Andy Ludicky. Son, how did Michael Taft break his wrist? Our CJ, we talked before we went on air to CJ Vogel. He said that Taft actually broke his wrist originally against Texas Tech in the season, and then kept playing, and then re-injured it a little bit in spring ball, and never went and had it looked at before spring ball. So he played through some injury last year. Now he's back. He's got either a cast or working, whatever you want to call it on there, a floating cast, however that's called these days. So he's going to be fine by time it's to play, and he'll play through whatever, clearly, because he did it last year, just frankly. So we'll see how that works out. All right, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That is Andy Ludicky of MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're looking to own your own business in 2024, make sure you give Andy a shout. He can walk you through a process that allows you to basically decide what kind of business you want to run, what one fits best for your financial purposes and needs and ability, and takes you through this entire process that really is a good look at future of owning your own franchise. 404-973-9901. If you want to own your own business, reach out to Andy. He'll help you go through the process. MyPerfectFranchise.net. Thanks, Andy, to you and yours for sponsoring the live stream as well. All right, let's go to some other questions here. We're going to this is a free question live stream. There's some super chats. We'll get to those and definitely put them at the top of the line. But this is literally you guys asking questions. We're going to be here to answer. John Haney, after day one in shorts, call it national championship.
I texted Kirby and Muschamp, and I said, y'all are done. I mean, moving on. I mean, I wouldn't even show up.
Hey, John Erb, I'll let you do this one, Jerry, because I talked about it earlier. What players were on the starting O-line today?
Yeah, so left to right, that was Kelvin Banks, Hayden Connor at left guard. That was Jake Majors at center, DJ Campbell at right guard, Cam Williams at right tackle. And Cam Williams has now, what does that mean? 10, 15, 20, 25 pounds? I don't know. It probably depends on when you weigh him and what he's eating on that day. But I'm here to tell you, he looks the best physically he has since he's been at Texas. Not even close with Cam Williams. The second team offensive line was more interesting to me today. It was Trevor Gooseby at left tackle, Cole Hudson at left guard, Connor Urtson at center, Neto at right guard, Jaden Chapman at right tackle. Then Brandon Baker was third team right tackle. They're competing with Jaden Chapman. Malik Ogbo, third team left tackle. There, Connor Stroman, the third team guard. Daniel Cruz, the freshman, was third team center. And I'm trying to remember who the third team other guard was. That'll come to me in a second. But interesting that Neto worked more at left guard in the spring. He worked right guard today. Cole Hudson was at left guard, which is where he started. No, Cole Hudson started at right guard. I'm sorry, his freshman year. But they flipped that from the spring more so to today. And we'll see. I mean, I think both, but Neto came out with a second team right guard today. Cole Hudson was second team left guard.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Stephen Henderson. Rod, this one's going to be for you. Will the team speed overwhelm teams? What did you think of the team speed? First look at them 2024, Rod.
It is different at wide receiver. It's different at wide receiver. I think it's different on the edge. At certain positions, just the first few steps on the edge now with guys like Colin Simmons and Trey Moore, as you mentioned. And I my hope is that, and it seems like at DB, there's a different kind of an athlete too, that I observe. Guys like Derek Williams, he looks like he's a fluid athlete. Malik Muhammad, those guys. So you're gonna have more overall foot speed in the secondary, just a little bit more. So I think the team, there's no question, it's faster. Guys like Anthony Hill playing linebacker, it's a faster team overall. Do you have the high end you had last year with an Xavier Worthy? I don't know. I mean, Isaiah Bond may represent that. I'm not sure the fastest, Jaden Blue, who the fastest guy on the team is. But overall, I think the position that embodies it most is wide receiver. It's just they got so many different levels of it, of explosivity, of straight line speed, of guys who have the change of direction, short area quickness, and I consider that's kind of, as a DB, that scares me more than the straight line speed. I'm fine with a guy. I can figure out how to run with a guy who just runs straight ahead. The guys who can change the direction, the guys like Silas Bowden and even Matthew Golden, putting that there. Those are the guys who are really tough to defend. Because that's how you did acceleration and deceleration, get in and out of breaks as a DB. That's what keep you up at nights. The guys who are just straight ahead speed, I can find a way to defend those.
Imagine saying in 2021 that a 5-star tackle like Brandon Baker would be third on the depth chart. Man, we've come a long way. And Rod, you and I were talking on the sidelines today about just this very thing. They got first world problems, not third world problems these days on the offensive line. I think that's clear overall. All right, going to keep asking some questions here. Hey, Jerry, I want to get to a super chat that is a little recruiting related right now. David Parcells asks, who is the better prospect in your opinion, Myron Charles or Josiah Sharma? Myron is listed higher in most recruiting sites. Can I just say this, and this is my opinion, they're two different positions. So it really doesn't, like Myron is a defensive tackle, like a 3 technique primarily, whereas Josiah Sharma is a nose. You agree with that comment, Jerry, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think Sharma can play either. I think he can play nose, but I think that's what makes him such a valuable prospect. I think he can play the 3. I personally think Sharma is But look, you're kind of flipping a coin because so many times when a guy, whether this guy's ranked 90 in the country and this guy's ranked 120, it really does come down to maximizing your talent. I mean, there's not the differential. It's not like we're talking a number 2 player, 1 or 2 player in the country versus a number 400 player in the country, because there's a big difference there. These guys are pretty close. So it's really going to come down to who maximizes their talent. But I do think Sharma ahead of Myron Charles a little bit, because I think Sharma's got a rare combination of quickness, power, and ability to play, agility to turn and play down along the line of scrimmage. I just think he's a little rare with that size. Myron Charles, I think, is a very talented player in his own right, may have a little longer arms on him. I can see from a prospect standpoint why some people would look at Charles and say ceiling maybe a little higher with him than Sharma. I'm not sure I necessarily. I mean, people know where I come out on Sharma. My comparison's Sean Rogers.
All right, we're going to keep at it here, taking your questions tonight on the live stream. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jerry Hamilton and Rod Babers of On Texas Football. Let's go to this one. Outside of punter, this is from Ham and Cheese Sammy's. Outside of punter, what's the biggest concern? Going into today, I had defensive tackle and cornerback out as my biggest concern. I'm interested in hearing Rod's on this, because I left today thinking that Texas is going to be okay at corner. I think Gavin Holmes looked good. I thought Javion Cole looked good. I think Manny Muhammad looked good. I think Warren Roberson will be okay. So I actually have more concerned about how good the defensive tackles are beyond Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins, by the way, best he's looking at Texas uniform by far.
He does look good.
Yeah. Say, Rod, your question though. You're a DB. Do you feel better about the secondary today after you watched them go through one-on-ones, or worse? What were your thoughts?
I do feel better because they have options, right? You talked about the Jalen Gilbo aspect, right? And we heard PK in the coordinator's media availability bring up Jalen Gilbo and say Jalen Gilbo's been ascending, and if he continues to ascend, that gives us options with Jahdae Barron. You can move Jahdae Barron out there. So I think that's why I'm not as concerned, because you do have contingency plans. Not only I expect Gavin Holmes to show up, you got Javion Cole, but if that's to say worst case scenario, neither one of them are trustworthy, and I think they will be, at least one of them. You can move Jahdae Barron out there and put Gilbo at the nickel. Sounds like they believe that Gilbo is going to be, up to the task. So I'm with you. Even though Nick Saban brought it up, that was his biggest issue personnel-wise for Texas. I think they have options there. D tackle, they brought in all these guys. So how Texas defense overall adjusts to the loss of essentially the guts of your defense last year, right? The kind of the core of the central nervous system of it. T. Sweat, Byron Murphy, and Jalen Ford. I think that it's not I don't think a debilitating issue pretty much right now, but it is something that I wonder how, and we're not going to know it until game time, right? We won't figure this out in training camp. They're not going to get physical enough to figure out if that D tackle room is truly a possible weakness or a liability in training camp. We won't. You won't know till Michigan, unfortunately.
Yeah, and scrimmages won't matter as much either.
I don't think reveal it.
No. Now, to Rod's point, I think it's pass protection on the right side of the offensive line and the interior defensive line to stop the run, a true power run game. I think here's the great thing for Texas or the fan base. Michigan's going to try both of them. They're going to, they're going to DJ Campbell and Cam Williams on the right side.
Great point, Jerry.
By the way, Sark had a great point today in the press conference. I got to mention this, Jerry, and you were there with me. He said, look, we see it all very early. Colorado State is air raid, and Michigan may have 8 offensive linemen on the field at the same time.
Yep.
So the first 2 games, they're going to see a lot of different looks. And so how they play that defensive front and utilize them will be interesting. Syracuse Horn asked this question. Pads come on when? Saturday. Yes. Sark revealed that to us late today. He said that they'll go through they'll practice tomorrow again around 2:45. Then they'll practice late Friday night, and then they'll come back on Saturday evening and have a practice on Saturday evening as well. So the pads come on the fourth day, is my understanding, and that will be the fourth practice. All right, this one from Patrick Roberts. Who stood out as the punt kick returner? They didn't work on kick returns while we were observing it today. They did not work on kick returns. They worked primarily on punt return. Rod, Jerry, I think the three of us were all in agreement. Silas Bolden just looks like a natural.
One of the things that Sark said, that one of the most interesting things he said in the press conference after practice was, he said, on some level, our punt returner could be dependent on the type of punter we're playing against. It could be the guy that kicks the ball down the field, right? That's a Silas Bolden. If he's a rugby punter and it's more of an angle punt, he said that could be somebody different, right? He said, so that position could be a little dependent, or he said maybe we just want a possession of the ball and not go after a return. That doesn't really seem like Sark's MO, by the way. But he did mention that, Bobby. I mean, he said, look, it could be somewhat dependent on the type of punter and the special teams we play against as well. So I thought that was interesting. By the way, Rod, you were always saying first world problems. Sark brought a new phrase to it, crying from a yacht.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. Crying from a yacht. I like that. Yeah, it makes sense too. I get the visual.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah, that's what Texas fans. Hey, that's what we have right now. I don't know if there are any true third world issues on the team right now. Cornerback. How's the D tackle room looking? Wide receiver target share, stuff like that. Yeah.
All right, Syracuse on that with another question. Wisner looked a little bit thicker in the photos. Jerry, was that apparent in person?
Yeah, I would say I don't know what his exact listed weight will be. I know what the rounded numbers are right now, but he looked like a solid 190 to me, 190, 195 pounds. Definitely stronger in his upper body. Easy to see a big improvement and key improvements he's made from year one to year two. No doubt about it.
All right, this one from Justin Yarbrough. Thanks for the super chat, Justin. Always appreciate you. How valuable is all the experience from the portal to the young guys on the team? Interesting. Bolden practiced like a professional today. I want to put that out there. As good a practice as you can have from that standpoint. Andrew Makuba, good practice. And so I couldn't see much of Trey Moore from where we were at, and they didn't really participate in team drills for that edge position. I did see Tia Savea, Jermaine Lole, and Bill Norton go after it a little bit. I think that's very important this day and age, because other teams are going to have those guys too. Jerry always goes back and says this, and it's something I agree with. There is no excuse any longer for having a young, inexperienced team in college football if you're a blue blood. Nope. Florida State proved it. Let's just go to the portal, and if we don't get guys that can be definite players, we'll at least get some guys that have experience and know how to play.
Yep. Look, I'll say this. I'll say this. Alex January is going to be a better football player than Bill Norton. I don't have any doubt long term. That's not a knock on Bill Norton. When Texas goes to Ann Arbor, Bill Norton's a better player than Alex January for that game. And how much experience matters. Bill Norton's practiced against the Georgia offensive line, got the hell beat out of him for 3 years, transfers to Arizona, has a strong season there, first season as a starter. That experience is huge going into Ann Arbor. Will that play as big of a role game 8 as it does game 2? That remains to be seen, right? It is something about Alex January, I think, looked really good today and has a bright, bright future. What's that guy going to look like? Because I was told point blank Sunday, he's going to play. That's not saying he's going to be a 6-man rotation, but he's going to play. So the question is, how big of strides does he make throughout the season? How could that impact late season games if he's maybe more of a disruptive force? But experience matters. Week 2, September 7th, going up to Michigan. Isaiah Bond, the experience of playing at Auburn last year, just that game alone, right? Silas Bolden in the Pac-12. Matthew Golden at Houston. Those guys truly, truly matter for a team nowadays. If you play a strong blue blood out of conference in week 1 or week 2, that experience matters a great deal. It matters more than it will week 8, but you want to have the experienced players on the field when you go into the big house in September. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, I want to go to this one from Freelance Society. Thanks for the super chat. Though the NFL has recently tried college schemes, Texas staff seems to be taking what's working in the NFL for college. Rod, you could go on and on about Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay off the West Coast in San Francisco and with the Rams. You agree with that? Sark's a cheater. He likes to take from others the ideas of others and incorporate them into what he wants to do, right?
Yeah, and that's why the Sark scheme is so attractive to the NFL, because he does have what he claims a pro style offense, a West Coast passing game, and he's taken a lot of the ideas from I call it the Mick Shanahan coaching tree now. From when he followed Kyle Shanahan there in Atlanta, they became really good friends there. He did not want to, basically break away from the best offense in the NFL cold turkey. So he combined and hybridized a lot of their concepts. And now his offense a lot of it is the Shanahan concepts. So in terms of the offense, we used to say that that's an NFL offense, or that's a pro style offense, and that's a college offense. We don't say that as much anymore because the concepts are trickling up and trickling down a lot more. You see a lot of RPOs in the NFL now. You see a lot of pre-snap motion in both the NFL and at the college level. And you have now more coaches who are going from college to the pros and from pros to college more than ever before. And I think it's because the systems aren't as, back in the day, I think they were very distinct, NFL system and the college system. And now I don't think they're as much anymore. I don't think they're as distinct as they used to be, because a lot of the coaches from the NFL smartly Mike McDaniel did it too. They're drafting the quarterbacks and looking at the systems they played in college and how they were utilized and weaponized, and saying, all right, I'm going to steal some concepts from, that playbook or from that program, and then we're going to transition him into the NFL with some of those concepts he's comfortable with. Hell, speaking of the Shanahans, they did it with RG3, right? When they drafted RG, went down to Baylor and said, hey, we need the plays. We need the playbook that you got, because we want to use some of those plays in the NFL level. And that was when I think it became really popular, and you really started to see less and less of the pro style offenses and the college offenses, more of them trickling back and forth. So I don't think it is, like I said, Sark's offense could translate easily to the NFL right now, because it is based on a lot of the NFL principles from the Shanahan clan, which is easily the most popular offensive philosophy in the NFL right now. I mean, you probably could have a third of the NFL running that Mick Shanahan offense next season.
Good stuff. Hey, here's something from Forrest Eldridge. Do you guys think teams in the SEC playing us straight up with their systems will benefit Texas instead of facing the 3 high every week in the Big 12, even if it wasn't their base defense? Sark talked a little bit about this at SEC Media Days, actually. And he did say that he expects the SEC to play less gimmicky defenses than what they saw in the Big 12, because in the Big 12, you don't have the defensive line that you have in the SEC. So you have to do that a little bit and create cheats. That being said, I think Sark feels really good about where he ended up last season against the 3 high defense.
Yeah, he did.
I think that, yes, as the season went on, Quinn got used to it, Sark got used to it, and the novelty of it wore off. So I think Sark would probably be happy to see 3 high defenses right now. I think he finally thinks he solved that, right, Rod?
Yes. He has an antidote to it. It wouldn't work for everybody, but it works for Sark's offense. Essentially, he wants to, with extreme formations and some extreme personnel groupings, like the 6-0 line package or empty formation, which he uses against it, or even going 21 personnel would work. You want to expose the 3 high, because all the 3 high is they're running the same coverages that you always run, except they're doing it from 3 high safeties instead of 2 deep safeties and a single high safety. And all of the offenses, they have built in 2 high safety beaters and built in single high safety beaters. You learn those back in high school. But the 3 high safety is relatively new. I mean, it's barely, I don't even think it's 10 years old yet. So there aren't the natural baked in beaters, and you don't know what coverage they're going to rotate to from the 3 high. So you almost have to process everything post snap. So Sark's answer was, I will force the 3 high to reveal their coverage pre-snap. And the way he does it is with extreme formations. If I go empty, you cannot afford to sit back and disguise in your coverage. If you do, I'm going to eat you alive. If I go 6-0 line package, you better get down there to run support in a hurry, because I got a lot of mass up here and I can just hand the ball off and run right downhill on you. You know what I mean? So if I go power personnel group, if I go 21 personnel, then you're probably worried about getting to your run responsibility instead of the rotation of the safeties. So you'll get them cheating to reveal the coverage, whether it's going to be 2 high, single high, and then you can work in your natural beaters. So that's what really was the genius of Sark's antidote was, force them to expose their coverage and abandon their disguise. And he did it with extreme formations and personnel groupings.
All right, Rodrigo Ruiz, how did Darian Gillette look? What will be his position? He's outside linebacker. So I'm a little bit today, number 40, working with the linebackers. The first, and then we also had another question about the linebacker group as a whole. Anthony Hill and David Benda were 1 and 2. Leonga Lafau and Maurice Blackwell were the second team. That's how that looked and what they were doing. Third team, I believe, was Gillette and Ty Anthony Smith.
Oh, by the way, Sark singled out Ty Anthony Smith, the post-practice press conference, say that 17 times. Ty Anthony Smith, Sark confirmed, Ty Anthony Smith has gained more than 20 pounds since he arrived in Austin in January. He has turned some heads. Remember the name Ty Anthony Smith long-term at Texas.
All right, this one from Zane Petty. Is Jade moving to boundary corner? He didn't work there at all. We also got a question about who the starters were opposite, or who the starter was opposite Manny Muhammad today. It was Gavin Holmes. Javion Cole was getting worked in a little bit in one-on-ones, but actually Kobe Black and Warren Roberson were second team today. Javion Cole was third team. And why is that? Sark does this with all of the newcomers, no matter what position. It just doesn't move you up because you came in as a portal transfer. You have to earn that. Cole looked pretty good though, pretty sharp. I will say that Gavin Holmes, Jerry and Rod, has gained some good weight. He's added some weight to the frame. That being said, somebody's asking this. El Conquistador. Is Silas Bolden similar to Steve Smith? So Steve Sarkisian mentioned Steve Smith today when comparing the two. The problem I have is, yes, Steve Smith is 5'9". Okay, but Steve Smith was 195 pounds.
Yeah, he was thick.
Still like a college running back.
Yeah, he was thick.
Silas Bolden is 165, dripping wet.
Yes.
I mean. So that the comparison, though, that Sark was making that I do agree with,
fearless,
is he was saying guys like that are not normal size. There's a couple things. One, they got to be fearless.
Yep.
Silas Bolden and Steve Smith, they do share that. They're fearless. I can tell you from going through one practice with Silas Bolden today, that's just not an issue for him.
Fearless.
I mean, it's just some people it is, Rod. Some people. Harry, some people it's not. That is just being concerned about his health does not go through his mind. It just doesn't. The second thing I would add with him, and this is what Sark said that I so much agree with. When you're guys like that, you have a special skill, and the guys that succeed know how to punctuate or accentuate that special skill at the right time. So if it's quickness that gets you open, you don't just have the quickness, you know how to make it get you open. So that special skill, even though you're 5'10", whatever, 5'9", the speed lets you do that. And that's what Silas Bolden had, in my opinion, today.
Great.
All right.
Yes. Hey, by the way, we have some Duck fans, Oregon fans in our chat, which I love. This is fun. Y'all saw Silas Bolden. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Tell us in the chat. We got 2 or 3 there. Hey, by the way, Juju Juice asks, is Jerry's Anthony Smith much bigger now, like reported? Yeah. He's between 215, 220 pounds. So he has gained, he was around 195 when he got to Texas. So he is plus 20 pounds, 22 pounds since he arrived at Texas. That's a big number. But the one thing about Ty Anthony Smith, I always compared him to like a kid you'd see in South Florida when I was doing all of this nationally is, look, he's a smaller school guy, multiple sport guy. He was body and he had those really long arms. His body was going to blow up when he got to a college program. Exactly what's happened. But, it only blows up like that if you put in the work. It doesn't do it naturally. So Ty Anthony Smith's putting in the work under Torrey Beckton.
Doug Haywood, guys, with this question. Fellas, how is Andrew Makuba not starting over Michael Taft? Do you think Taft is physical enough for SEC football? I got newsflash for you. I think Michael Taft weighs more than Andrew Makuba.
I believe that.
Andrew Makuba is a slight build guy. Doesn't mean he's not physical, but he's not 200 pounds. So I don't know about that. I do think that Andrew Makuba may end up starting though. He feels to me, Rod, and you're a secondary guy, so I lean to your expertise here for sure. He just seems like he's got a feel for it. You know what I mean? Like some guys, it's just like we just talked about it, Silas Bolden. Some guys just see the ball, and some guys don't. And I'm not saying Taft doesn't see it, but Makuba seems to have that in him.
Yeah, and I think Makuba will be more of a coverage specialist in the end. I think that ultimately is the separator between the two. I think Taft processes pretty well too. He's really assignment sound. Obviously, he's limited in some ways, but I'm a Taft fan, but I think Makuba offers you the ability of somebody. I mean, even Dabo said he can play nickel, play corner, and play safety. Hell, PK said when the coordinators were available that Janae Barron can play safety, corner, and nickel. So you got two guys back there that offer you the ultimate versatility in the secondary. I think Makuba is going to win that job because ultimately you're going to need a coverage specialist there. Not saying Taft won't play and rotate, but it'd be nice to have Makuba in there, a guy with versatility that can play any position in secondary, roll down and play nickel. You can bump Janae Barron back and he can play safety, or he can be a guy that you can just roll your safety down and play, straight up man coverage, and he wouldn't be uncomfortable during that. And I think for Taft, there are times Taft's uncomfortable straight up just playing man-to-man coverage on a slot receiver. And who wouldn't be, by the way? It's the toughest thing to do, arguably, on defense.
Rod, who did we see him go work against today? Silas Bolden. Good luck. Good luck with that.
Exactly. That's not easy for anybody.
Hey, I've got a question here. I'm trying to look this up. I was trying to look it up behind the scenes, but I can't do it. Jeff Carey, super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Who's better, Bob Bowman or Steve Sarkisian? Bob Bowman is the new swim coach at the University of Texas. He's also in Paris, France right now, coaching some folks. And I don't know. I was trying to find out how many Longhorn swimmers now have won medals in the Olympics. Matt, our producer, I'm putting you on that. Can you help us out? Jerry, you had something?
I'll answer this one. No offense to Sark, doing a great job at Texas, but I mean that's a question: who's better, Bob Bowman or Nick Saban? I mean, what you're talking about. Different. I mean, Bob Bowman. I mean, he coached Michael Phelps for years. He's now got Leon Marchand, who's probably the top swimmer in the world right now out of France. He works with him. The female swimmer that transferred, she's won medals from Stanford to Arizona State and turned pro. One of the best female swimmers with Bob Bowman. So, man, that's a pretty good list. That's a pretty good list. And by the way, I mean, he's, like you said, Bobby, he's in Paris.
Yeah. I'm just looking. Luke Hobson and Drew Kibler, Carson Foster. There's a female that just won a medal too. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could help you more. But my point being, congratulations to all those Longhorns representing the United States in Paris this week. This one from 32 Jalopy. We're continuing, by the way, our kind of fast pace here on answering all of your questions that we can possibly get to tonight. about today's practice. This one from 32 Jalopy. On defense, I'm interested to know how Trey Moore looked, and offense, how Wingo looked. Rod, I'm going to let you talk about what you and I discussed on Trey Moore.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, and Bobby brought it up, and it is obvious when you look at the edges, you can tell the coaches are prioritizing certain traits, right? They want length, they want a certain frame, and you're starting to see it at the edge positions. And even, I mean, I know it wasn't Barron Sorrell necessarily wasn't one of those guys that they were recruiting in that aspect, but he has transformed his body. Like, Barron Sorrell looks amazing. Like, he really does. Like, when he passed by me, I took a double take. I mean, like I would back when on my single days when the sexy lady passed. I was like, what the? I had to take a double take on him. He just looks like somebody should be in a Marvel movie. But the defense of the edges, when you're talking about Ethan Burke, or you're talking about Colton Bosick, you're talking about even the way Colin Simmons, you talk about his frame and the length. Those guys look different. They look the part. Trey Moore does not really look the part. But to me, ultimately, considering they just brought him in via the transfer portal and all the promising, optimistic things that we're hearing about Trey Moore, that is probably more of a compliment to him. Because if the coaches are bringing him in and he does not have those physical measurables that they covet at that position, that means they looked at him and just said, dude, I don't care about the measurables. I don't give a damn if he fits our prototype. Look at him. Watch him play. He's an eye test guy. They brought him in. So the fact that he stands out in that group, it's like when you see a smoking hot woman with an ugly dude, and you go, well, that ugly dude got something going on. He's either really rich or he's blessed. I don't know what's going on, but he's got something. That's how you feel about Trey Moore. You're like, look at that group, you're like, one of these things is not like the other. What's going on with him? Trey Moore's, hey, he's got something going on.
Let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about the second part of that. Because people are asking about how Ryan Wingo looked. Sports Masochists wonder how long it will take for them to be honest about Wingo and Makuba being starters. And then I had another one asking us about the receivers from Ashley and which receivers looked the best the first day. I said this early, and I'll repeat it. I would have taken the days of the second group of receivers over the day of the first group of receivers. So I thought Silas Bolden and Ryan Wingo had, from what we saw now, we didn't get to see all of practice, but I thought those two were the most impressive receivers on the day. I like Jonte Cook's day a lot. I like Matthew Golden. Isaiah Bond and DeAndre Moore, I didn't see enough of Moore, and Bond did not look – I mean, he made some nice catches against air, but when he went one-on-one, he got jammed a couple times pretty easily, actually, and didn't get off the line very well, or into his route at least. So that's just me. I don't know where it's going to end up with Ryan Wingo. I really don't. But color me impressed with that young man. Color me impressed with Silas Bolden as well. Longhorns have some receivers. They got to figure out which one's the right one, So we'll see. We'll see where that ends up. All right, let's go to this one. This one from Hookem from Arkansas podcast. How did Quinn look today? I made this comment.
Stronger for one. He's put on 15 pounds of good weight that he stripped off the bad weight, put on 15 pounds of good weight, closing in on 215 pounds. Look good there. Look, Sark said it in the press conference after practice. He looked like a guy who's 3 years in Sark's system now. He's more confident and moving quicker within that system. And I think that's probably the best news for Texas fans. Does that mean he had 100% of his throws? No. It was a windy day as well. But looks a more comfortable player in year 3 in Sark's system, as he should be. And I think that shows in confidence, guys.
Yeah, I am big fan of Quinn. I'll just say this, and I'd like my 3% of the future earnings of Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, and Trey Owens. I'll just stop there. I mean, that is I don't know exactly how much that trio is going to make, but my guess is NIL ain't going to be anything to them.
Yeah, by the time
those three are going to make some serious coin.
if they can establish themselves as a franchise quarterback, it doesn't even matter if they're a great franchise quarterback. If they're just somebody's franchise quarterback, by the time they're up for their second contract, and we're seeing Tua get $53 million and Trevor Lawrence get $55 million, hell, man, they'll be in like the $75 million range. It'll be somewhere crazy. Hell, Dak's about to get 60.
Hey, a couple questions.
Look.
Sorry, go ahead.
The NIL will pay for Quinn and Arch's first house. The NFL contracts will pay for their yacht and their.
It will definitely be positive. Hey, this one is a combined question from Juju Juice. How is Kenny Baker's coaching and energy? And then another person, I'm trying to find it here, asked about. Oh, here it is from Kurt Barnett. 1 and 2s across the defensive line. I'll let y'all answer about Kenny Baker's energy. 1 and 2 across the defensive line, and I'm just talking about the interior, where Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. Second team was Jure Bledsoe and Tia Savea. Third team was second team was Aaron Bryant and Jure Bledsoe. Third team was Tia Savea and I think Alex January at nose. If I'm not remembering right. Now, the question goes back to what we were just talking about. Goodness gracious, what did I just lose? I lost my thought. Oh, there it is. How is Kenny Baker's coaching and energy around that? Jerry or Rod?
Yeah, that's a tough one on day one because they work out
farther down,
which we don't have real access to. But Kenny Baker's a high energy guy. I mean, look, the different personality from Bo Davis. But Kenny Baker's a high energy guy. He brings that energy. His defensive line assistant, really high energy guy as well. So yeah, I thought they had great energy. I think the biggest thing though, Rod, there's two parts for these D linemen is the energy in the communication is to you have. What position requires more of a motor than interior defensive line? I'm not sure there is one. So how do you bring it out of those guys on a snap-to-snap basis throughout a practice when they do have different personalities? So you have to be able to read your room, change your message when needed for the player, really understand your guys, and get those guys energized, keep that motor revving, because I think that's the toughest. I think interior D-line is the toughest position to coach in football.
It's interesting you said that. I remember talking to Keandre Coburn a few years ago, and he told us, he's like, man, go look at how we platoon the position, how we rotate different guys. He said, essentially, it is a promise, like basically from the coach, and it was Coach Davis at the time, a promise that if you give me your max effort on every play, I'll make sure you're rested enough. Like, you don't worry about taking plays off. You don't worry about, dialing down, dialing back your motor. You give me max effort, max motor, every play, every down. I'll make sure you're fresh, and I'll make that determination. And so, getting what you're saying about the motor thing, you're so right. I mean, that was the test. That was almost for Coach Davis. Then that was his way to incentivize the guys. Like, no, give me everything. I'll make sure you're rested. I'll make sure you get ready. Don't worry, you won't be worn out. Late in a drive. I'll make sure you're fresh. We'll have bodies out there, but you got to give me max effort. And he said that was the reason why a lot of the D line was so good then. He said because everybody was incentivized to give max effort, and you knew you didn't have that many reps because they were so deep. He said you knew somebody else was coming in, and you had to make the most of your reps out there. Getting to your point about the psychology of motivating that position, it is a little bit different.
All right, Randy Jones with the next question. Hasn't Cedric Baxter gotten more muscular? This was the Rod B.
Yeah. How's
Cedric Baxter going to get better this year? Put on more armor. I thought he looked bigger. I thought he looked got a little that, not that he had baby fat, but a little bit of body reshaping has taken place. Is that a fair assessment?
Great way, because I don't think he weighs that much more. When I look at it, he doesn't weigh, but you can tell the tone. He's toned up the body a little bit more. He's a little more cut. That's the armor. And I like the way, I mean, it's not baby fat, but he still had that teenage boy body working for him. And now you can start seeing him put on that man mass a little bit.
Yep. This one from Rye Guy 14141. What is y'all's outlook on Colton Vasek? Will he get playing time this season? Jerry, You saw him and I saw him, and I'll let you say what you told me earlier because I really liked him.
Yeah. So, by the way, we've had some of my Wi-Fi issue questions. I don't understand it. Bobby and I are pulling off the same Wi-Fi here. So apologies to you guys for that. But Colton Vasek looked strong, looked athletic, looked healthy. I mean, he's got to stay healthy, but you can tell he's had more body freedom to go through a full off season with Torrey Becton. He didn't have that in year one. So I think now that he's healthy, he can go through that complete Torrey Becton off-season workout. And I thought he looked really strong, easily the best he's looked physically. He carries 255, 260 pounds very well. Very impressive getting off the bus today for Colton Vasek.
All right, someone asked, Rodrigo asked, how did Trey Wisner look? Will he get some snaps? Looked really good. We talked about that, I think, briefly. The other thing is, when Sark talked about running backs today in the post-practice, he said, I really like our top three.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about 1 and 2 all off season. He said, I really like our top three right now.
And Kyle Flood did the same thing yesterday. He was asked about CJ Baxter and Jaden Blue, and he unsolicited just brought up Trey Wisner. He's like, oh, don't forget about Trey Wisner, y'all. So Trey Wisner is going to play. He's going to play.
Yep. All right. Have a super chat here from Robert Muhammad. Thanks, Robert, for doing this. How excited are y'all about O-line depth? I think here's y'all know I'm kind of unabashed about this. I want to see Texas do well. And I think one of the reasons why Steve Sarkisian and what he's built has staying power are from two positions primarily: quarterback, offensive line. Those two positions are in great shape. Not good shape, great freaking shape. That's so how excited am I, Robert? I'm excited about winning games for 10 years in a row when you have those two positions lined up. Because those will allow you to do that more than any other. So that's why I'm excited about that particular position. I don't know if you were Rod, you or Jerry want to say anything, but that's where
Just
I'm at.
real quick, think about the end of Mac Brown, right? The end of the Mac Brown era. Most people go to the quarterbacks, which was the Shakespearean irony of the state of Texas producing the most quarterbacks, all right, in the country, and yet Texas not being able to find one. But it was the O-line that fell off first. Colt and Jordan Shipley and that 2009 group, that O-line was okay and adequate, but that O-line started to drop off for Texas way before the quarterback issues and the quarterback hell that Texas was in. So to Bobby's point, that might have been the first sign of that things were going awry for Mac Brown Texas football.
Hey, this one from Guy McPhail. What coach stood out to you guys today? I mentioned this in the earlier one. Scott, I'll get you in a second, Jerry Hamilton. What coach stood out to you guys today? Scotty Hazelton stood out to me. I mentioned this earlier. He was actually the former Michigan State defensive coordinator. Sark hired him in the offseason to be the additional on-field coach that they can allow, or one of the additional on-field coaches they can allow. Hazelton today was working exclusively with the nickelback star position, not Terry Joseph, not Blake Gideon. They were working with the corners and or safeties independently. They have their own nickel coach now. And it's a guy that was former defensive coordinator at Michigan State last year and also worked at Kansas State as defensive coordinator. Pretty good stuff there. Now, Jerry, which coach stood out to you today? Was it Jeff Banks by chance?
I'm going to leave Johnny Nansen to Rod later, but here I'm going to illustrate Jeff Banks' coaching day to the best I can on a live stream. I mean, that was Jeff Banks today. I mean, I couldn't say it. I couldn't say anything he did, but to say Jeff Banks coaches with passion and a vocabulary would be an understatement.
What'd you see of Johnny Nansen out there, Rod B?
Well, I thought he'd be coaching linebackers. Just seemed like he was very active in coaching, other levels of defense too. I saw him, talking to, D linemen out there, giving them different critiques. So I'm on the second level. He just seemed to be really active. So I'm excited about the Johnny Nansen influence. I feel like we're going to see more, and I think we're going to have to. You're going to see more variety from that PK defense because of Johnny Nansen's influence overall.
This one from Michael Simpson. Does Jermaine Lole legitimately have even 50% of the player he used to be still in him, or is he this year's Catalan?
Oh
man, here's the problem with that. Here's the problem I have with that. I don't know yet, and I'm worried that Jalen Catalan is going to now go be a better player at UNLV after a year of being healthy.
Yeah,
and so look, if Lole is healthy, he is a good player. But I don't know if he's 50%, Michael. I can't tell you. I wish, and I know Jerry and I say the same thing all the time. We wish you could. We don't have the answers yet. And we certainly didn't get them today. I mean, moved well out there, but there was no contact for those interior guys at all. It was just going through drills, arm under, that kind of stuff, lean. So it was tough to get you. I'm sorry I couldn't answer that question for you, Mike.
I think the one thing, Bobby and Rod, is they only need 20 really good snaps from him per game. It's not like they're going to ask him to play 50 snaps in a game. They need 20 to 25 productive snaps a game from Lole. I do think he can give Texas that based on what I've heard. Now, to question, is he 50% of the player he used to be? Probably not. He had 77 tackles and 6.5 sacks his first year as a full-time starter for Arizona State. That's a hell of a season for a defensive lineman.
Yep.
So do I expect him to put up 38 tackles and 3 sacks this year at Texas? Probably not. But if he can give him 20 to 25 snaps at 100% of Lole, it's a good player. It's a good role player.
All right, let's keep going here with a couple more questions here before we call this one a night. Thank you all so much for joining us on the Tuesday or the Wednesday night live stream. Missing my days here. I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That's Andy Ludicky of MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're looking to get into your own business and own it and run it from the very start, you'll want a blueprint of sorts. And that's what Andy and his group can provide to you. Visit them at MyPerfectFranchise.net. 404-973-9901 or reach out to them directly at Andy@myperfectfranchise.net. That's myperfectfranchise.net. A couple more questions here coming in. There's one. AJJ, which freshman besides Ryan Wingo and Colin Simmons can you see getting playing time this year?
One of the freshman running backs, because injuries do happen. They will happen at that position. There will be a need for one of those guys to play at some point on some level. Jordan Washington will play this year at tight end. Alex January will play on the defensive line. Obviously, the punter, Michael Kern, may be a starter, but is competing for a starting job. I don't know if I missed anybody else there, guys, but those are certainly the ones that come to mind. I mean, will you see Ty Anthony Smith or Phil Samee or Jordan Johnson Rebel on some level, whether it be special teams? But if you're counting meaningful snaps this year, those are kind of the guys I would go with right now.
That coming right to us was Christian Clark on that one, Jerry. And Rod, he looked really good today as a young freshman as well. Jordan Washington certainly is one that I would think might be. All right, headset communication is a question that a couple people have. Rye Guy has one. Lowry has one. Was Sark and yours practicing their communication with using the in-helmet headset at all? Yes. Sark told us he was today. He was talking to the quarterbacks all day, all practice long through the headset. So they are already practicing that. On defense, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do. And this is where Sark said it could be different guys against different offenses. What they do against Colorado State, an air raid team, might be different than what they do against Michigan, where they might line up 8 offensive linemen on a single play. So it could be a linebacker. How I read this, it could be Anthony Hill or David Binda against Michigan, and it could be Jalen Gilbo or Andrew Makuba or Michael Taft against a Colorado State.
That's interesting, though. So the assumption was that Anthony Hill is going to lead the field? So
I don't know. No, I think what I mean is I think that the run calls will be more important against some folks.
Yeah.
And the secondary calls will be more important against others.
Interesting. Yeah. No, you're right about that. I can't wait to see. Do we even know who they're going to be? Who's going to be their 40 personnel? Like they have to go with 3 linebackers, who they would use for their 3 linebackers or 4 linebackers they did?
I think that right now it would be Hill. As of right now, it would be Hill, Benda, and Mo Blackwell.
Okay. Because they're going to need him versus Michigan. They're going to 40 personnel like half the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one there that we need to get to. This one from High on Boo Corrigan. What do you think is the maximum number of receivers that will be in the Circle of Trust this year?
Ooh.
Maximum.
Jerry's right. I think Jerry's right about the 6. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go one short of y'all. I think it's 5 is gonna be the max. Not that 6 or even 7 can't play.
That's a lot.
I mean, Sark in the presser today, guys. You know what he said? He goes, they don't pay me to they pay me to win games. So I'm going to play the players that help me win games. It ain't about, everybody looking good. We got to win. So he's not going to back down off of that. You're going to have to earn. He said, look, they've got to earn it. I'm not going to give them anything. So that's my thought on the Circle of Trust of wide receivers. All right, John Mozzie, question for all. What is the ideal plan for Arch and Trey Owens as fall camp progresses? Thanks for your question, John. What's the plan?
You get Arch ready to play. I mean, Arch's got to be ready to start a game or ready to go into a game and help you go win it, period. So to me, it's getting Arch ready to play. And I knock on wood, I hope Quinn makes it through every game, starts and finishes every game, but he hasn't. So recent history would tell you got to get him ready to play. And recent Texas football history would tell you that Texas starting quarterbacks don't usually make it through an entire season without having an injury of some kind or having the backup have to play. So history would tell you that Arch is going to play this year. History would tell you that he's probably going to start a game this year. So get him ready. Trey Owens, emergency quarterback. I mean, if worst case, knocking on wood again, worst case, emergency situations for Trey Owens. But that, I don't think anybody's anticipating anything like that. But Arch has got to be ready. I
agree. And so you're right. Completely agree with all that. Trey Owens emergency. The issue with Trey Owens, and this is what Sark will do, he'll be working on drops, footwork, the small things. That's what he'll be doing this year. So that when it's his turn to take the mantle as the second string from Arch, he'll be ready. I mean, look, he is a bigger guy. Like Trey Owens is bigger than Arch, who is bigger than Quinn. Okay, Trey Owens needs some work on his footwork. To be fair, right? That's the one piece that he absolutely needs. So, got to take that. All right, finishing up here tonight. Again, this is the Wednesday night live stream special edition. We're trying to answer all of y'all's questions. Y'all have come up with some really, really good ones tonight. Appreciate y'all doing that. This is going to be one. I think I've got one more after this one. But Kenneth Cassidy asks, after today, do you feel better or worse about the DT room? Any thoughts on that? Even though we didn't see him hit a single lick.
For me, no answer today. Definitively one way or the other. We've had some people ask, what did Jure Bledsoe look like? Great physically. But look, even Sark said it. This is a pads come on. When we get physical, then we really start to defensive lineman and see where this shakes out. Now, that's exactly where I come out. I mean, look, physically, I think you could you can see older bodies is what you can see. So what's that worth? Texas has a lot of experience and a lot of college games played at that position. Alfred Collins has played 4 years of ball. Vernon Broughton, Bill Norton, Savea, Lole. I mean, Lole was a 2018 recruit. I mean, that's a lot of snaps in college football at the Power 5 level combined. So they don't lack experience. One of my takeaways today was I like the freshman class. And I know it's only 2 because DeAndre Robinson bailed and went to Florida. Melvin Hills has got a good frame on him at 305 pounds. And Alex January looks like a guy that's going to play. And we were already told he's going to play, but he looks like a guy that's going to play. Alex January's got a bright future. Melvin Hills can carry the weight needed in the SEC, and he is a hard worker. I like the freshman class physically. We'll see what happens when it's time to play.
Nice. All right. Last question here. This one from Jake Faust. Do we see Trey Wisner in that Savion Red role? Most tough-nosed football players that you don't want to tackle. In rewatching games from 23, reused Red a lot more than most remember. It seems like it was more early. The guy that I compare Wisner to is Keelan Robinson. Isn't he more Keelan Robinson to you guys? But in fairness, I don't think Wisner's quite as tough as Savion Red between the tackles. I think he's more of a glancing blow guy that you don't think you're going to get hit square with, right? I don't know. Y'all see him more as a Savion Red or a Keelan Robinson type?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think it is a good question because Sark likes that he likes the Wildcat, right? He ran it with Rojo, broke it out with Savion Red, so he wants to use it. And interesting, maybe Trey Wisner could be there. Some guys have a knack for short yardage, and Rojo was actually a better short yardage back than Bijan. And Savion Red had a knack for it, getting skinny at the right time, being able to kind of, bogart and push your way through a hole sometimes, make a hole when there's not one. Some guys have a knack for that. And I think Savion Red did. I'm not sure if Trey Wisner has that kind of skill set. Maybe he does. I don't know if we've seen enough of him. But I do think Sark wants to break out the Wildcat again in some way, form, or fashion. So that's interesting with Trey Wisner. I didn't think about that. I think he's more a guy you want to get on the edge, though, if possible, not necessarily with the power running game, but I haven't seen enough of him.
All right. Good stuff. That's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate, again, our sponsor, Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise. I also appreciate all of you guys stopping in, listening to us this Wednesday evening. We've had a long day today, but I tell you what, we've got it again tomorrow. Longhorns, practice number 2. We'll be out there. Kick starts at 2:45. We'll definitely be there. We've got some articles already up and going on TexasFootball.com right now. Please get in there. If you're not a subscriber or don't participate on the message board, do so, please. We enjoy talking to people that enjoy talking about Texas football. That's why we started this thing in the first place. So we appreciate all of you joining in from all over the places that you do all the time. For Jerry Hamilton and Rod Babers and our producer behind the scenes, Matt Hutchison, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good one. Good night. Football is here. Welcome.